So, welcome everybody to another episode of Coffee with ADHD Experts. This innovative series brings together some of the most eminent experts in ADHD and mental health in the world. We know that demands on mental health services are rising. We know that this increase can never be met by professionals alone. So the question is, how do we think differently about mental health? What do we have to change? You are welcome to join us to enjoy this collective experience on ADHD across the lifespan. We will be sharing 3 short questions that can enhance our purpose as advocates and let other mental health professionals have the chance to listen to their experience. Let me introduce to who we are. Myself, Norma Echavarria, MD, adult psychiatry, president of the ADHD chapter of AAP in Argentina, American Psychiatric Association International Fellow, World ADHD Federation member, and American Hispanic Psychiatric Association member, and Eleonora Giusti, that she's absent today. She is a PhD psychologist, vice president of the ADHD chapter AAP in Argentina, clinical psychologist and family therapist, professor at Palermo University, Buenos Aires, Argentina, and Argentine Association of Cognitive Therapy member. And now, for everybody, I'm going to be introducing to all of you to Dr. Sandra Kooij, a psychiatry MD, PhD. Sandra Kooij started as a psychiatry in 1995 with the development of diagnosis, assessment, treatment, education, and research in the field of adult ADHD in the Netherlands. In 2006, she received her PhD at Radboud University, Professor Dr. J.K. Butelaar, on a thesis entitled ADHD in Adults, Clinical Studies on Assessment and Treatment. She is ever since involved in research, treating patients, training professionals, informing the public, publishing articles, books, and websites. She is from 2002 head of the Dutch Expertise Center, Adult ADHD. I'm not going to read that in German because it's not my pronunciation. And knowledge is distributed by scientific and popular publications, books, teaching in the Netherlands and abroad, using educational programs, leaflets, websites, and films. She published 109 international papers, 8 books, and 19 book chapters on adult ADHD. She's initiator and chair of the International DIVA Foundation since 2007 that distributes online translations of the Dutch diagnosis interview for ADHD in adults, DIVA 5, of which 21 are online, available in www.divacenter.eu. The DIVA-5 is based on the just DSM-5 criteria for ADHD. There is also Young DIVA-5 for children and adolescents, and DIVA-5 ID for people with intellectual disability. Initiator and chair of the European Network Adult ADHD since 2003, in which 28 countries take part. Current research topics: ADHD in older people and treatment response, ADHD in women, and hormonal mood changes during the lifespan. So let me welcome Dr. Sandra Kooij. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Norma.
Well, you know, I said when we were not recording, and I'm going to say it again, that from my perspective, so many years involved in this field, you made a whole difference for the ADHD community, for us psychiatrists, since your intervention in Europe and then all over the places. I'm grateful for thanking you in name of all our community. So, and here goes the first question. And as a researcher, psychologist, doctor, teacher, and advocate, and being one of the main references in this field, what has led you to work with the ADHD population? And the second part of that question, in your opinion, how did your interventions made a difference?
Okay. Well, Norma, it's a good question that many people ask me. How did you start? Where did it start? What made you think of ADHD in adulthood? And I can tell you it started with one patient. And this patient was a girl of 23, and she was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And she came to a psychotherapeutical clinic where I was a resident at the time. We are speaking of a long time ago. And I met her, I spoke to her, and I thought, this is not real borderline stuff. Because a real borderline girl really devaluates you in the waiting room already in 2 seconds. She says, oh, I expected a male, a man, or an older, more experienced person. And I was just a girl and I was not experienced. So that's what borderline personality can do. We all know that. And she didn't. What did she do? She was depressed. She was impulsive. She was aggressive. And I gave her an antidepressant and she didn't respond well. And I thought, why is that? There's something different about her brain. It was just a strange idea. But when you have strange ideas, you sometimes ask further questions. And that's the good part of it. So I thought she doesn't feel like borderline. And at the time, I had seen a lot of borderline girls. And she was not in this manipulative, interactive problems. She was more disinhibited, I would say. She couldn't control emotion. She couldn't control impulses. She couldn't control mood. So I thought, what is this? That is something different. So there it all started. And I happened to go to a symposium on child ADHD and follow up into adolescence and adulthood. And it was completely new to me when I heard that ADHD was not outgrown in the majority of boys with ADHD, because there were the first follow-up studies. I speak about 1990. And I thought, and oh yeah, and they told me those boys were diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. When they were childhood ADHD patients, they developed into cluster B personality. And I thought, well, borderline being the sister of antisocial personality, could this be the case in this girl that has a diagnosis that doesn't seem to fit well? So I started to check the DSM-3R criteria at the time. And I asked her parents and her sisters to come, and they started crying.
When you started to ask questions? When you started to ask questions to them, or
yeah,
or
I checked the DSM-3R criteria in the family and in this patient herself and her sisters, and they started crying. Why? Because it fitted like a coat. It was exactly the description of their daughter, their sister. And they said, well, borderline has something to do with it, but this is better. Okay. And this was really, for me, the moment that I thought, if that's true for this girl, it may be true for many more girls and women with ADHD that are wrongly diagnosed with personality disorder cluster B, because we do not know any better.
Yes.
And this is a shame. We should know better now that we know that ADHD is not outgrown and that it may present and looks like cluster B, but maybe it's not. And the treatment, of course, is quite different. And treatment for personality disorders at the time took 4 to 8 years psychotherapy. So quite time consuming and intensive. And for ADHD, it may take 1 month until you see improvement using psychoeducation, medication, and some coaching. Of course, it may take longer, but you can see a real difference.
Oh, of course.
So I thought this is really a paradigm shift. If that's true, not only for this poor girl, but for many more girls and other people, because we are unaware of the persistence of this childhood disorder in adults.
Wow.
So I thought about it half a year because I was only a resident and I was young and I knew nothing. And I knew nothing.
That's a good
It's
thing.
important.
It is very important. Many do not know that they don't know.
Well, so the newspaper came along because I had asked questions at that symposium and they were intrigued. And I said, well, I know nothing. Come back in half a year. I have to study first. So this newspaper came back after half a year. They said, you said something new that I never heard of. ADHD in adults did not exist at the time. So I had this interview and I thought, now the world will change. Oh, but
wow.
it didn't. It didn't.
Well,
It
not
didn't
that
with
moment.
It didn't with one interview in a newspaper. Of course not. I published my first paper on when I became a psychiatrist. I started to look for ADHD in my population, outpatient clinic, and I found a lot of them. And I developed an interview because people said, "How do you do that? Can you send me the questions you ask? How do you know for sure it's ADHD?" And blah, blah, blah. I said, "Come to my office, look what I do, and tell me your opinion." So I started to teach and I started to learn. Then I had too many patients in it for one person to deal with, because the patient organization called me and they said the historical words, I still have them close to my heart. She said, Arga Paternotte was her name. She said, "You are doing what we are waiting for."
Wow.
It was so impressive to me. I was just a loner in a dark corner of psychiatry, starting something that nobody believed in.
Well, that's so amazing.
And she said, "We are 20,000 parents of children with ADHD, and we know it's not our crown. Ask us." And I did, because we started cooperating. She became a good friend, and we did a lot of stuff together. It was fun.
That's great.
And she said, can I refer patients to you even when the GP doesn't believe in ADHD? I said, yes, because the GP doesn't know and the patients do. So no problem.
Good for you. So good to listen to you, Sandra. I'm sure that you're one of the ones that went through a Pat Queen and Kathleen Nadeau book about women with ADHD, girls with ADHD.
She was my hero. Kathleen Nadeau was my hero. I wrote a preface in her book that was translated in Dutch. It was one of the first books in Dutch. So, of course, I went to all kinds of symposia to find colleagues abroad, because I was the only one in the Netherlands that was really taking it seriously. And but the patients made it great, you know. The patients came from all over the country, hearing by the patient organization and from each other that there was something to do about it in adulthood. And
somebody was listening. Somebody was listening.
Yeah, somebody was paying attention and listening and taking it seriously. And well, it was very rewarding, because I knew it was important. I knew it was new, and I was not afraid to continue.
That's so good. I'm so glad you did so, because you know what, when I started in 1996, the first time I heard about ADHD, I do have ADHD myself, and kids with ADHD, dad with ADHD, a family, genetic, very much spread. In Argentina, it was such a different place to search for somebody to be able to open and to just imagine treating you. It's like, even talking about ADHD at that time made everybody think I was insane. So I'm so glad that you stepped for that, and that I also kept there. But it's so important what you say. People are the ones that allow you to keep going, because they are really very, very much concerned about the other diagnosis they've received. So that's an amazing thing. So I know you've done so much, and that's so rewarding to know that you've been working so much in that. And I know that your interventions made a difference for many people. And the second question, Sandra, it's like, I know that, but you can say that to us. It's that, what have you achieved getting involved in this field? But I would say, from your personal perspective, what have you achieved? And did you find cultural, social, gender, or age conditioning in that path? And it's as important. You said some of those, but I would love to hear to you. It's like, what did you gain, or what did you get?
What do you think that I think achieved? Well, I can say it was a struggle for a long time. It was not easy, but I was really assured by my patients that that was the right way to go. And it still is. So more is not necessary.
Well,
and what did I achieve? I learned that I had to teach because my colleagues wanted to know how I did an interview, what questions did I ask, how was I sure, what about the DSM, how about medication, was it safe, was it addictive, was it dangerous, how often, how much, and so on and so on. So I realized there was almost nothing available. The United States was ahead of us. I learned everything from them. My teachers are the Biederman Group and Brown and Spencer and Adler and Nadeau. And so I went there as often as I could to be in the community of experts to learn. And I also started my own research. So my first study was to check on the health, mental health, but also physical conditions of people with ADHD, their response to Ritalin. At the time, we only had Ritalin in our country, and their history, the time they got their first diagnosis and the delay in the diagnosis, and so on and so on. So this was the first study I did, descriptive study. It didn't change the world. I expected it to change the world. It didn't. It took some time. And then later I started, I went away in my first workplace because I couldn't grow there. The whole country was calling. And the secretary was overwhelmed, and it was my fault. And of course, it was not under my control, but they experienced it as something I did to them. So I realized that if I wanted to do something really helpful, I should leave. So I left this department and I started in the hospital I'm still in. And they told me, you cannot get your own department. And I said, then I don't come. Because I had learned that if I didn't have a staff and a budget and responsibility, it could change any moment with a new person and no budget and people leaving. So I had seen that already. So I said, then I don't come. And then in a week, they said, please do come. We have discussed it.
Good for you.
And I was a bit more arrogant at the time. I knew what I needed.
I don't feel perceiving that from arrogance. I would say your convictions, and you were really knowing what was needed.
Yeah.
I think it was amazing that.
And you know what I said? They said, how many staff do you need? I said, we start with 5 and 100 patients, and we have to double every 2 months.
Wow. Wow. How many of you are there today?
Well, it was, it was true because I knew the numbers of people waiting.
Yes.
And I knew the composition of a team needed to treat ADHD multidisciplinary, not only doctors and medication, but also psychologists and nurses and group therapy and whatever, coaching, CBT. So we designed this comprehensive treatment program together, and it was a fun time. We were starting with a small group, all completely dedicated, all teaching and learning what we could and developing everything ourselves because there was nothing. It was a great time. We had a lot of fun.
That's nice. And also getting something that is so important for your community. And not only there in the Netherlands, you did so many good things for the rest.
Yeah. Well, later on, this hospital was expanding its knowledge to all kinds, I think 30 locations in the country. So my team started teaching all those other teams. So we spread the word program, but we also started spreading the word in Europe and abroad. So we developed indeed the Diva interview, That's now available not 21 but 24 languages, including Russia.
Wow.
I'm really
I do
excited.
have the Spanish and the English version.
We
both.
do have Spanish, we have Catalan,
Yes.
we have
Wow.
Japanese, Hebrew, we have languages I will never be able to read. Thanks to colleagues in those countries that helped to make the translation fit for psychiatric daily practice.
That's
so
so
that
cool.
we use the right words so that people can really feel what it's like to have this symptom.
And you know what? Something else as a consumer, it's like when you get to the point with your training professional and the scales, the rating scales you should buy are so expensive. Getting Diva and getting the Diva 2.0 that I also have in my phone makes it so accessible, so easy to do it. So this is something I really have to thank you in the name of many people that we work, because it makes it possible for people just to have it, not to just try to those.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it was on purpose. The Diva 2 was for free because we did everything for love, and also the psychiatrists in all those other countries, because our aim was to make careful assessment possible for the world. Because we only started in Holland, but the countries around wanted the translation. They trusted the interview. So we just started this Diva Foundation. And now it's Diva 5, the next edition based on the DSM-5. It costs €10. Unfortunately, I had to decide because we had to pay the APA for the criteria, the use of the criteria, and it's a lot of money per language. So we had to do the lowest price possible in order to still
be able to pay,
make it available.
Well, that makes a difference because it was really inclusive. You have many countries that are able to do it and use it because of different translations. So that is an amazing thing. So
that was the aim. Yeah.
I'm so glad. And I think you have this vision, Sandra. Let me say, I would love to be in your place because I am a fighter for ADHD for so many years, living in a country with very little knowledge and resources, but I am still there. We're working very hard to make what you did because we want to teach people to be able to really re-diagnose so many people. And I cannot tell you how many women I see that were diagnosed with not just borderline personality disorders, depression, dysthymia, anxiety disorders, and so many suffering in many ways. So I would say it's an amazing to be able to have you as an inspiration. So, wow, it's a great.
But you're doing the same job as I did, I understand.
Okay, so the third question for you, Sandra, is on which stage of the way through your ADHD road would you say you are today? And what do you imagine the ADHD field to be like in the future?
Okay. I think it's a very good question because we could talk about ADHD forever, but and that's also fun, but we need to think about the future and how to improve availability of care for patients because the world is big. The prevalence of ADHD is at least 5%. So mental health care, even if we teach everybody, will not be able to cope with the need for care. And we are not able, without ADHD diagnosed, to cope. And we are doing a wrong job if we don't recognize ADHD. So we want to recognize and treat ADHD. So I think we need to take the next step into the digital world.
Yes.
So we need digital assessment, digital pharmacy, digital treatment. And we need online treatment with people on distance. And we need online groups of communities of patients that help each other, experienced experts. And we are currently developing that because we are developing it also for older people, I wanted to say, because older people above 65 had nowhere to go. And my aim was, before I have my pension, that adult people can continue to have care even after age 65, because they still may suffer from ADHD and still may want treatment. And it's possible. We just published our first treatment study, an open label study, just a clinical follow-up study, showing that it's possible to prescribe stimulants to older people when you do it in a careful way.
Yes.
So that's hopeful, and the response is very similar to what we see in adults. Of course, we need randomized controlled trials to happen in the near future, I hope. But further, we need digital treatment. So we developed an app called Super Brains.
Oh.
It's meant to empower ADHD patients because they have super brains, but they need something to use them better.
That's
and
great.
To profit more from their capabilities instead of suffering from their impairments. It's developed by an ICT expert. He had a company called Angry Nerds. Isn't that funny?
That's creative, right?
He's very creative, and he's called Rutger den Hollander. And he came to me 5 years ago saying, I want to make an app for ADHD. Are you with me?
Oh.
And somehow I thought, this is somebody I need to meet. So I met him and we started cooperating, and I wrote a lot of content for the app. It's now available in Holland, and it may be translated in the future. Whenever you want, just ask. Of course, it costs money to do that, and you need support maybe from companies in your country or hospitals or governments, I don't know. But the aim of the app is that the patients can use it on their own for their own empowerment without any treatment. They get a lot of information, they can meet each other, they can do self-tests, they get a lot of tips and tricks how to sleep better, how to feel better.
Like a digital coaching.
Yes. And then when they get treatment, we can connect in the app as a physician and patient. We can chat, we can video call in the app.
Wow.
So no longer calling secretaries and waiting 3 weeks for a call.
That's
just
so
chat.
important.
You can just chat, ask a question, and this will improve the speed of the treatment and the quality probably. And the patient himself is much more active, making himself better.
Yes.
So it's much more equal cooperation than a top-down doctor relationship. I think it's necessary for the future, and we hope we will be able to reach out to many more people than we do now. So this is SuperBrain's development that we're just implementing now. But I think due to Corona, we will all need and learn fast how to do that.
Well, what we're doing in this Coffee with Experts idea was also promoted because of COVID. We were like always working with our computers, and we said with Eleonora that on our job of trying to make ADHD awareness more and more prominent in our country, and just try to defeat all this misdiagnosis and misconceptions about that ADHD is not real, that we medicate kids or medicate people. It's so important. Instead of fighting, from my perspective, I think we have to do things. It's like, I'm not going to answer to things I don't think that need to be answered, but yes, to do things. And I think it is important to have the chance to use this community digital world that opened much more with this pandemic situation.
Yeah.
It's so great to have you here and listen to your amazing career, Sandra. And is there just like a take-home message you would share with us? You're a very generous person. You did all this work because of love, and I love that. That's amazing. What would be your message if you have to give one, like a very strong and powerful message you want to talk to people that are looking to this? What would be the message you want to share?
Never give up.
Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice.
When you're after the right aim and you know it, never give up, and seek support and make it possible. And together we can do everything. Nobody can stop us. Nobody can stop. People may have criticism. People may be unaware. People may be ignorant, even stupid. But we don't care. We just go on because it's needed, it's necessary, it's helpful. And maybe it's a good thing that you know that I'm starting my own website called, you are the first one to hear the name. It's called ADHD Power Bank.
Power bank, I like that.
Where colleagues and patients can get resources on ADHD. So teaching, short videos, webinars, podcasts, a lot are for free. Papers, books, everything I did, what is free and what you can have to buy. It's both available. And I want to develop this website so that the world can profit from experience that we created, that we have built up, and to share the knowledge with the world.
That's so nice. That's so good. So I wrote it down. I'm going to go through all this. We're going to translate this and edit and put it. It's such an amazing thing to have you, Sandra. We never had the chance to be meeting each other in any conferences.
We can meet again whenever
you can. I was in Vancouver. Maybe I was in the audience, but I never had the chance. I have this sensation in my life. I have a lot of friends that I always like to listen to the story behind, in the back part of the people I really admire. That's why I have all these amazing experts in my agenda, because they are like friends for me. So you are a new friend for me. So thank you very much. We share the same vision about what we have to do and go forward and never give up. And thank you, Sandra. Thank you very much for your work. And we make a net with all your work.
We are a worldwide net.
We need to keep that vision, not even selfish, and we have to open what we know to the world.
You're most welcome, Norma. I thank you for your interest in the work and your nice words. I feel a bit shy after all the compliments, but you make my day, I have to admit. And let's meet again.
Yes, of course. Of course, and I would like to introduce you to Eleonora, she's a psychologist, and we've been working together for many years, and friends also, but sharing the same concern. ADHD can be changing so much suffering and making public health in a different way. It's not only mental health, it's public health issue. So we want to work together and share this with you. So thank you very, very much, and hope to be meeting again. We will see whenever we put this up, we're going to be sharing it with you. All right.
Great. Thank you so much. Good luck with your program.
Thank you.
It's wonderful. It's very important, and never give up.
I do. I'm Basque too, we never give up. So
wonderful.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Thank you.